expected to be around 3 o'clock. I think we will continue now with the George Kekelidze from Russia. And he will talk about the implementation of power supply system in remote and isolated areas of Russia, and how actually possibilities might be today. Please go on, George.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll try to put up my screen. Do you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, gentlemen. So I took the liberty to change a little bit the topic of my subject. We discussed this about this with Morten as well. And as you see, the name of the presentation is Opportunities for Development of Regional Renewable Energy Projects in Georgia and Russia. So there are these two different countries, me being Georgia and spending all my life in working in Russia, Europe, and Georgia. I would like to present the opportunities to you in both these areas. And for this, we have the tool, which is the non-profit organization in Russia. It's a Russian section of Eurosolar, and in Georgia, it's a Georgian section of Eurosolar, which you see up there on the screen. And I'm very glad that I have this opportunity to present with my colleague in the board of European Renewable Energy Association, which Morten is as well. He is chairman of the board of trustees of this association in Bonn as well. So he got me educated from solar into the wind a little bit to change my mind. And now what I would like to tell you about is what opportunities are there. So last time on the previous session, I spoke about the opportunities in Russia, and it was more maybe technically a little bit oriented. Here I will talk about the financial opportunities and opportunities to put the projects together, and share with you our success in developing the first projects in solar. It was very interesting for me to listen to some of you guys talking about how difficult this is to work with the government in Europe, and they don't do this and they don't do that. I mean, I thought, boy, we are not the only ones here in Russia or even in Georgia who are fighting with this lobby, in addition, which is very much, as you know, pro oil and gas and so on and so forth. But we have found our ways to do it, and one of these ways is to go step by step and to find every opportunity you can squeeze in with the pilot projects. So here you see three photographs on this screen. This is Herman Scher, who is our founder of our association, and academician Nodar Kekelidze founded our association in Georgia. He passed away last year, happened to be my father, and also academician Jores Alfiorov, who was Nobel Prize winner. And here we have these tools which you can remind, and you will have the contact details in the end. If you decide to do some business, then you can also use these tools. This is International Innovative Technologies, our non-profit organization in Russia, and this is the Nodar Kekelidze named Material Research Institute in Georgia, Tbilisi State University. So I would also like to remind you, if you remember from our last year, about this conference and forum that we are going to held in Moscow in October 2020, and I hope that this will be the good opportunity to for you to come, and maybe we can start some of the projects together. It will happen in October. So So what do we do actually if we speak about Russia? In Russia, for small wind, there are three renewable energy market segments. One of them is regional grid connected projects, and here the investment is guaranteed, the investment payback is guaranteed by the law, and it goes from 100 kilowatts to 25 megawatts in this range. And this is exactly where we concentrated in the last years, and we were able to put together the first solar project successfully, developing the development company, and I will show the slide a bit later. So this is one opportunity. The second opportunity is microgeneration law, which was introduced this year, and it gives the possibility of up to 15 kilowatts to do the net metering system. And all this is pretty new in Russia, so it's right now developing. And then the third opportunity is energy supply to remote and isolated territories, remote areas, which is in Russia, as you know, or maybe you will know now, that 60% of Russian territory is not covered by the grid. And that's also the opportunity for small wind. And what we do as Eurosolar in Russia, we support the project developers and investors to get the governmental funding. And we were able to form such first international consortiums with the successful projects. And what we also do is we always go together with the educational and applied research projects, which the local government always likes because it brings in not only the energy supply, but also some social development into the region. And one of such examples which we did for the solar schools, I just want to show you here, together with our German partners. We just launched this website, the solar schools, where we implemented the solar roofs on 6 schools in 6 different cities in Germany, supported by the German federal money, actually, Goethe Institute and Ideas into Energy and the Clarion, these companies, and maybe we'll be able to do something like that also for wind, together with you or some of your team members. So you can also have a look at the study which we made for DENA, German Energy Agentur. Here is the link, and we did it for 5 different regions of Russia in remote areas, and you may find this interesting with a lot of details on calculations and so on, which I will not stop right now. But I would like to show and demonstrate to you this particular story, which is going on right now with our partners from Germany, German EPC company Solar 23. Together we formed a development consortium where we provided the technology of solar EPC through this particular German company, and then our role was to work on the Russian market with the government and to identify the place for the solar park, and also find the investor. So we were able to find the investor. This is the Russian company, Russian-Chinese company actually, who also has the factory for localized products, which is important in Russia because in this area, in the area of regional projects, I can show you here in the like this one, the regional grid connected projects guaranteed by the law. Here you need to have the localization. So the same for solar and for wind. So if you want to get the governmental subsidy and have success in Russia, then we can find you the proper factory that will provide some tools or some pieces, and then some of your products can be sold in Russia. For the other two, for macro generation and for the remote areas, the localization is not needed. So this, from point of view of the ready-made products, is easier to start with. So what we did here is we had the first meeting in Ufa. Bashkortostan is about 1,000 kilometers to the east of Moscow. And This is like a land, like a separate republic inside Russia. And so there is a Russian Energy Forum there every year where we started the first discussions with the government. And then government agreed to open the tender for 10 megawatts. So the tender was opened. We formed the SPV together with the investor, and we were able to win this tender. And until December 1, 2020, we will now uh, have to make sure that the solar park works, which is done by the investors' possibility, because we as developers keep a smaller share in this whole, let's say, constellation. But what is important is the investor liked it, and now we are working together to build the pipeline for about 300 megawatts in the course of the next 4 years. And we were asked by the local government in Bashkortostan also to do the same thing in wind. So here we can work together to see what opportunities are there to go into development into this kind of projects in Russia. So just a little bit about Bashkortostan. Sorry, it's in Russian, but I'm sure you're familiar with this kind of curves. So there is certain potential there in this particular area, but this is just one land, and there are many other lands in Russia, and this law works in principle everywhere. So we can try to do something here together. But of course, the biggest opportunity for small wind is in this project, which is implementation of power supply systems in remote and isolated areas. And here, the Russian government is willing to implement the projects because they want to exchange the diesel generators. And there are 3 phases of this project. The first phase was the DENA study, which I showed you before. And the phase 2 and phase 3 are the pilot projects, which we are working now with a number of potential investors to put together the pilot projects in the different isolated territories of Russia. Here, there is a need for combination of solar and wind or only wind and batteries. There are some technical questions. Not all the suppliers can supply the products which work in the cold. But I think for Danish manufacturers, this should not be a problem, since you are familiar probably with the cold regions. And this whole thing started because the Rossetti, which is the biggest Russian grid company, they calculated that if they will put the electricity by the electrical line in all the remote areas, they need this amount of money. Which if you need the euros, you have to divide this by 70, but this is still a significant amount of money. And if they do it with the off-grid solutions, then the amount is much smaller. So they decided to go into the off-grids, and so these projects are now being developed. And this also has the opportunity of applied research projects in Russia. And for Georgia, the situation is a little bit different. Because Georgia is an associated country with the EU, and there are a number of opportunities from international funding bodies to start up the pilot projects, which we want to implement now. And I have to say that for both Georgia and for Russia, I did not talk here about the large projects, because there is also the large project market. There is Vestas, for example, in Russia present with the factory, but this is a different rules, and this is different games, and the small wind has no chance in there. But for the off-grid autonomous systems for various private applications in Georgia, there is a good market, and definitely we could try to put up a project there together with your support in our hands and running. And then there is a new law also there for up to 500 kilowatts net metering for households and individual entrepreneurs. It's possible to do. Of course, the price of electricity both in Georgia and in Russia is quite low. You're talking about maybe 4 cents if you talk about Georgia, for example, yeah. But for these kind of mechanisms, for the entrepreneurs, sometimes it goes out up to 7 cents and even more, and then it already makes sense to start some kind of a project in wind, I guess. In solar, the good projects for supported Russia, they have about 10-20 cents per kilowatt hour. And so here in Georgia, we also have these bodies. We have, as I told you, several bodies, International Innovative Technologies and Eurosolar. We can support with the project management and the consortium forming. We have the experienced EPC partners. This is the company IDC, who worked for the many years as an international constructor for the international customers like BP and the others. We can find co-funded applied research between German, Danish, or Georgian universities. We can do also educational projects. And so this is now the new market, which I would like you to invite you, and we try out the ways together. That is basically my message. And because of this particular success story that we already had, we think that there is a chance of the mutual success. And here is our partner list with the links and the mobiles and telephone numbers, which you may find useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George, and thank you for the invitation. I think it's really interesting what you're telling us, and especially for small wind, that there is a growing market in both Russia and in possibilities in Georgia as well. I would like to ask, are there any questions right now for George? Then we'll take them, or otherwise I hope that you can participate after 3 o'clock as well. But we will have a forum at that time, George. So to say that there might be questions coming up there as well.
Sure.
But are there any questions right now? It seems as they're not. Okay. Thank you very much, George.